good morning, good evening, good afternoon. Beautiful people on this beautiful, beautiful planet you get to call home for such a tiny amount of time. If you're on some spiritual quest, if your soul is on some spiritual journey, there will come a time in your soul's evolution that you'll start to sit in the emptiness of thought, that you'll start to live from pure awareness. This, for the majority of people, doesn't come easy. This is a process that your soul has to go through. For some people, Eckhart Tolle, Mooji, even Mooji went through struggle to get to where into abiding in discovery. A lot of problems with his ego, a lot of problem with the story in the mind, the conditioned mind. So he had to go on a journey to release that. He awakened, fully awakened. I think he was in his late 40s or something like that. Whereas Eckhart Tolle had an instant shift. Aaron Abke had an instant shift into awareness. And once that has happened, once you've gone into that place, then there's no going back, because the ego has been dissolved. The story, the conditioned mind, you've awakened to truth. You've become aware that story playing out in the mind is not who you are. There is something else there. There will be that shift where the ego and awareness are coexisting, but eventually they can't coexist. There's no place for the ego anymore. Or there is a place for the ego. It depends on your soul's journey. It depends whether once you've been hit with Cupid's arrow, once you've seen that there's only love, that there's only God, that we're all one, once you've seen that, then there's no going back. If you've not come to that point and you're still stuck in the ego, then there's every chance the ego will control everything you do for the rest of your life. But if you've seen that there is just pure awareness, that story isn't true, the conditioned mind cannot be true, then there's no going back. That ego will dissolve away. But what you'll start to realise once that ego starts to go is you'll start to see it in other people. That because you're egoless, because you're pure awareness, that really triggers people that are stuck in ego. Because they don't know what to do with it. You're coming from a place of openness. You're coming from a place of acceptance. You're coming from a place of love. You're coming from a place of awareness, from being the witnesser, from being pure consciousness, pure God consciousness, which is who everybody is. It's just the ego, it's just the mind, it's just the story, it's just the conditioning that'll ever say anything different. So when you come into contact with the majority of the people, when you're pure awareness, that really triggers people that are stuck in the ego, because it's a false self. That ego is false. It's not who they are. Them stories is not who they are. That conditioned mind, the beliefs, the values, I believe this, I like this, I dislike this, it's all bollocks. It's all just a story playing out on the screen of consciousness through the ego. None of that is real. So when you come into contact with people as pure awareness, as the consciousness, then you'll feel that. You'll feel the separation from the other entity. You'll see them just going off in the mind. Keep trying to connect to a story. What is happening here? Why is this person not reacting the way I want them to react? Because it's just a story playing out in the mind. So once you're aware of that, then you come to see that everybody is just living from the conditioned mind. It's very rare you'll come into contact with somebody that is pure awareness. Beings have been veiled by the mind, been veiled by the ego. If you're lucky enough to lift that veil, then you see that. Don't pick up any offerings the mind has to offer. In every moment, your pure life is going to unfold exactly as it's supposed to unfold without you fucking thinking about it. Once you come to this realization, it's over. You're liberated. Your suffering ends. It doesn't exist. It can only exist because of a story playing out in your mind. Because of your conditioned mind. It's just what has happened in your life. If you were brought up in a totally different set of circumstances, you believe something totally different. It's not who you are. Them stories are not who you are. What mummy told you, what daddy told you, what your friends have told you, what your neighbours have told you about John is not real. It's all it's all their stories, what their parents have told them, what their friends have told them. That is the ego. That becomes the story in the mind. The conditioned mind. The conditioned entity. Believing that's who they are. I like this, I don't like that person because John told me about that person. I like this, I don't like this. I like this food, I don't like that food. I like being around this person. Where's that coming from? It's coming from a story in the mind. It's coming from your conditioned mind. It's coming from blockages, samskaras. You don't like X situation because of something that hasn't been released in you, something probably from your childhood or something like that. Whereas if you disengage with that, if you refuse to listen to the mind, refuse to listen to any offerings the mind has to offer, then what is there? There is no judgment, there is no fear, there is no worry, there is no anxiety, it doesn't exist. There is just pure awareness, pure consciousness, the witnesser of everything. Once these words leave my mouth, they don't exist. It's not here in the dream anymore. Once a conversation finishes with somebody, it doesn't exist. It only exists because of the thoughts in your head. The next moment doesn't exist. It only exists because of a story playing out in my mind. When you come to realise that, then there's no need to come up into the story. You can live detached from the conditioning. Be pure awareness. I see it with my little boy. So wrapped up in a story. In the ego. But that never changes. For some entities, that never changes. They live in that place the whole of the lifetime. Coming up into a story in every moment. Suffering in every moment. You'll come to see that Virtually everyone, every entity that you come into contact with is suffering. They're either suffering before, in, or after a moment. And when you stand in that pure awareness, and you're free from the ego, you're free from the story, the conditioned mind, then because other people are so far into the ego, listening to the story, listening to the conditioned mind, then they don't know how to react in their moments. Because they're expecting something to happen. They're expecting you to behave in a certain way. They don't know what to do with awareness. The ego and pure awareness cannot coexist. Doesn't coexist in a single entity. So it doesn't coexist out in the world. If you're shining that pure awareness onto an ego, it'll drive the ego more into the ego, more into negativity, more into thought. An ego doesn't know what to do with awareness. An ego doesn't know what to do with love. Because all the ego knows is divide. All the ego knows is separation, is worry, is fear. So when you're empty of ego and you come into contact with the majority of the population who are in ego, then you'll see the reaction. The adverse reaction to stillness, to love, to peace. An ego doesn't know what to do with that. It goes more into a story. It goes more into the conditioned mind. People will live whole lifetimes in that space, in suffering and struggle. Some people won't even get into seeking. Some people will live whole lifetimes in suffering and struggling, listening to the ego. Some people will come into seeking. To breath work, cool water therapy, hypnosis, whatever it might be, to try and find whatever it is they think they're looking for. Thinking you're still stuck in the story. You're still stuck in the conditioning. Some people will come to abiding in discovery, into pure awareness. Look how far you've come along the chain to get to pure awareness. You've gone through suffering and struggle. You've gone through years of seeking. You've come to abiding and discovery. No wonder egos, people who are stuck in the story, in the conditioned mind, don't have a clue what to do with people that are in abiding and discovery. You've come so far along your soul has come so far along the evolutionary journey, lifetime after lifetime after lifetime, to sit here today in abiding and discovery. Ego, other entities who are the ego, who are the conditioned mind, feel a threat from that. It challenges everything that they believe about themselves. The self-worth. Because that's what the ego is. The ego is clinging on to fucking life. The ego is, I need to be in control of this situation. The ego is manipulative. The ego doesn't want to give up any space The ego is destructive. The ego will destroy everything in its path. The ego is negative. The default mode for the ego is negativity. If you allow your mind to go unchecked, if you allow your mind to run wild, you will suffer for the rest of your lifetime. Because you'll keep diverting back into the negativity. That's what the ego wants you to do. The ego wants to be in control. And all the ego is a program. It's your conditioned mind. It's everything that you've been drip fed over the years that your ego believes. That the story in the mind believes. Some people live the whole lifetime not knowing that they're listening to something that isn't real. Not knowing that they listen to other people's stories. Believing that's who they are. When it never has been, never can be, and never will be who you are. Who you are is pure awareness. Who you are is the witnesser of all that. Witnesser of all the mind activity. Witnesser of all the emotions. Witnesser of everything that is happening out in the world. Without a story playing out in the mind. Is that difficult to do, to live in that place? Absolutely it is. Because you could have had 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70 fucking years of listening to the nonsense that your mind generates. Whole lifetimes of listening to the static, the noise in the mind. None of that has ever been you. And that's a stark realisation. If you come to realise, fucking hell, I've been listening to something that isn't real. That can have if this process isn't gradual, it's been years and years and years and years for me. Lots of time in suffering and struggling. Lots of time in seeking. Time in abiding and discovery. If somebody says these words to you and you're in suffering and struggling, you ain't going to hear them. Even if you're in seeking and you hear that you're not the ego, you're not the thoughts in your head, you're not the conditioned mind, you're the awareness behind that, witnessing everything, witnessing those thoughts, that's who you are, you're not going to fucking hear it. You only come to hear this when it's the right time for your evolution, when it's the right time for your soul to hear the truth. That might not be in this lifetime. You might live your whole lifetime suffering and struggling because of the thoughts in your head. That's okay. Some people are meant to live in that space. There has to be the darkness. There has to be that negativity. There has to be the ego. Some people are meant to transition out of that. To see that they are one. To see that they are pure love. To see that they can witness and observe the world detached from the story in the mind. Some people are meant to live in that space, in peace. Some people are meant to end their suffering in this lifetime. Some people are meant to wallow in the middle. Still believe in the ego, still believe in the there is something else there. So they're in seeking. They do breath work. They do meditations. They do hypnosis. They plunge into cool water. I've been there. Some people are meant to wallow in that 50-50 space the whole of the lifetime. That's okay. That's your soul's journey. Lifetimes to come, you'll come into abiding and discovery. There has to be that dark in order for there to be the light. There has to be the light in order for there to be the dark. There has to be fear in order for there to be love. That's the perfect balance in the universe. So let's wrap this up. If you come into awareness, if you come into discovering, if you come into realising that you're not the story in the mind, then what you'll realise is that the majority of the people that you come into contact with are the ego. Still believe the conditioned mind. Still believe the story. So when you're pure awareness, it will trigger. It's got to trigger people that are in the ego. They don't know, people who are in the ego want a reaction. People in the ego feed off negativity because that's what the ego is. People living from the story in the mind want divide. They don't see oneness. That's all they see, separation. So if you are portraying awareness, the witnesser, the consciousness, love, God, if you're in that space, then people who are in the ego will be triggered by that. Forgive them, Father, because they know not what they do. They don't know, they're unaware that they're suffering from spiritual blindness. They're unaware that they're listening to a story, a conditioned mind that isn't real. So we don't come up into thoughts anyway. We don't come up into the story, into the conditioning. So in every moment we're awareness. In every moment we're not the ego. We're not the story. So when you're that and you see that in other people, there is no judgment on that person. We just know that that person is stuck in a program. That person is stuck in the matrix. That person is stuck in conditioning. Forgive them, Father, because they know not what they do. Hopefully one day in their soul's evolution, they come to realise that they've never been that story in the mind. They've never been what mummy has told you, what daddy has told you. You've never been fear. There has never been anxiety. There has never been depression. That only exists because of something that you've been told. That only exists because of a story playing out in your mind. If you're judging other people, that's a story playing out in your mind. If you're fearful of somebody, that's a story playing out in your mind. That's your own conditioning. That is something that's happened in your lifetime that you've blocked, and it's become a part of your ego. It's become a part of the story in the mind. None of that is you. How would you know what anxiety is unless somebody had told you that? Unless somebody had told you that story? You wouldn't know. It's just that people have been told a load of bollocks. People have been told that this feeling that you're having is anxiety. Probably your parents or your friends or whatever it might be. Oh, fucking hell. You're feeling that? Shit. That's anxiety, that. That's the worst feeling you can have in the world. You best get doctors. They'll put you on medication. Medication will sort you out. Or if you're trots at doctors. Doctor says to you, fuck yeah, you're riddled with anxiety, ain't you? Fuck you, that shit, that. Whatever they say to you. Put you on medication. So you're on medication for the rest of your lifetime. Believing, that all comes from believing somebody's story. If you would have been told something totally different in that moment, my heart is racing, I feel a bit jittery, that's fantastic. I get that sometimes. It's the best feeling in the world. Let's go for a run. You'll feel superb after. Oh, what will that? Fantastic. All right, yeah, let's go. Off I go. Fucking, I feel great. Now what's happened? You've not been to the doctors. You've not believed somebody's bullshit. That's just somebody's conditioned mind. They believe that anxiety is real. They believe fear is real. Because of their own conditioning, because of the story playing out in the mind. If you were told something totally different, you wouldn't believe that. You wouldn't be on medication for the rest of your life, believing something that isn't real from somebody's own conditioned mind. When you sit in the space of awareness, then everything that you've been told, the ego, starts to dissolve away. And what you're left with is an emptiness, but a fullness for life. There is no fear. There is no worry. There is no anxiety. There is no Sam. That's just a name I got given when I was born. That's not who I am. There is no form. There's just the awareness behind it. This now is just a vivid dream. This moment is the only moment that exists. There's no future. That it doesn't exist. The future and past they only exist because of a story playing out in the mind. When you're dreaming, I'm going to have to wrap this up in a minute. When you're dreaming at night time, your consciousness becomes aware in the dream. You have the dream, or you go back to sleep. Your consciousness is pricked again in the dream. Say you have a dream about going stabbing somebody in your sleep. You wake up in the morning, you don't go to the police station, do you, and say, fuck me, I've stabbed somebody in my dream, believing it to be real. That's just a process that is happening in the mind. Your consciousness has become aware of it through the mind. Through the story playing out in the mind when you're asleep. That is exactly the same process that is happening during the day. It's just that you're more attached to form during the day. Your consciousness is more aware during the day. So you start to believe more stuff during the day, what the mind is saying. But that activity in the mind is just exactly the same that is happening in the dream at night time. This now is just a more vivid dream. So the noise in the mind, the static in the mind, is no different to what is happening at night time when you're dreaming. It's exactly the same process. But we're just more identified with form during the day. So if you can take that into every day, that this is just a dream, this is all just happening in my mind, then how can you ever take it seriously? How can you take the mind seriously? And you start to believe everything that your mind's saying. But you don't believe it when you're dreaming. You wake up out of the dream, you wake up, and it's forgotten with. It's only because you're more attached to the ego during the day that you believe that's who you are. That witnesser, the awareness that is dreaming, that sees the dream, but you don't engage with the dream at night time. It's just there, isn't it? It's just ba 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 ba. It's just happening. Just effortless. An effortless happening. A beingness. Then you wake up out of the dream. Boom! You wake up in the morning time. Then, as soon as you wake up in the morning, bang! You've been sucked into ego. You've been sucked into the story, into the mind chatter. You've become identified with form. You're not identified with form when you're sleeping, but it's still the same process that is happening in the mind. It's just that you're awake, then you're identified with this story more, because this is a more vivid dream. Take that, what is happening at night time, to be exactly the same that is happening during the day, and just let them thoughts appear, because they're going to appear anyway. There's no need for you to interact with them. Any thought, it's all bollocks. It's all just shit. It's just regurgitated shit. You'll notice that you're thinking the same thoughts over and over and over and over and over again. It's all nonsense. It's just programming. If you was in a different circumstance, you'd be believing a different set of thoughts over and over and over and over again. It's just programming. It's just the conditioned mind. None of it is real. So when you're detached from that, and you're that pure awareness, then the ego starts to dissolve into nothing. In that space is who everybody is. It's just that some entities won't come to realise that in this lifetime. So when you're in contact with somebody that is the ego, just realise this person knows no different. Forgive them because they know no different. They might not get to realise this in this lifetime, but your awareness, your presence will trigger people that are stuck in ego, because an ego doesn't know what to do with it. Because an ego isn't love. An ego isn't oneness. An ego will divide. An ego is negative. An ego will separate. Going back years and years and years and years and years and years and years ago, there wasn't a word for the ego. So they called it the devil. They called it evil. Because there was no word to describe this, the mind chatter. So all them years ago, that is what they called the devil, the mind. Evil, the mind. Only now we've come to realise that it's an ego. It's just another name that they've given it. All it is the chatter going on in the mind. It's the conditioned mind. So when you're living that from that place, when you're living from the ego, then it's just all negative. Just all nonsense. So when you come into contact with someone and with an ego, which is the majority of people, and you're just being pure love, joy and happiness, which I've had it every day. You're being love and kind and happy and joyful. An ego hates that, because it goes against everything the ego wants to be. The ego is so messed up. The story is so messed up. The conditioned mind is messed up. It's weird with other people's stories. So the ego doesn't know what to do. It challenges its whole self-worth. It challenges everything that it believes. Because the ego isn't that love. So don't think you're doing anything wrong by being love, by seeing oneness. That's who you are. That's who everybody is. It's just that beings have been veiled by the mind. So continue to be that. Continue to shine that light out into the world. But just come to realise, be aware of the fact that when people are reacting in a negative way to love, to joy, to happiness, to playfulness, which is who everybody is. It's only the ego that'll ever see or do differently. When people are reacting in an adverse way to that, overwhelming energy for life, just realise that is because what is happening is you're challenging that ego. That ego doesn't know what to do. It's going against everything that it believes. So that person is stuck in suffering and struggling because they're stuck in a story in the mind, believing that's who they are. So because they believe that's who they are, when they see something different, when they see love and light, it challenges everything in the mind. The mind goes into fucking chaos. When all they need to do, these people that are stuck in ego, is start to shift out of that and be in awareness. And then you can't judge, can you? There is no opinions. You're not suffering. There is no fear. There is no worry. There is no divide. So you see somebody that is joyful. You see what's there. You don't come up into the program. You don't come up into the story, do you? It's only people that are in the ego, in the mind chatter, that will suffer and struggle. If that wasn't known, you see somebody full of joy, you'd witness that from being the witnesser. There's somebody full of joy. That's beautiful. It's exactly the same when you see somebody stuck in ego. Forgive them, Father, because they know not what they do. Hopefully one day they'll come out of that, come out of the program, come out of the conditioning. But I know I've become aware that you're not that. That is when you see the oneness in everybody. Hope everyone has a fantastic day. Namaste.